Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing Little Eve, written by Catriona Ward. It's a horror, it's very gothic in atmosphere. It's a book that gripped me from the first page and didn't let go until the end. I really enjoyed this story. It's very dark, it is very violent, it's very challenging, there are some shocks in the story as well, but it's so captivating and so gripping. I recommend this book a lot. This book spans a few decades in the early 1900s. So it starts off around about 1910s and I think the end of the timeline is around early 1940s. But the first chapter is in 1921. So this book does have past and present chapters and it switches a few times throughout the whole novel. But in this first chapter, it's so gripping. We start with a butcher called John McCraith, and he's taking a whole side of beef to this castle on this isle. And the only connection from the mainland to the isle is through this iron gate. But the gate is not set in walls. There's a gate across a road, and it's impassable in any other way around the gate because of the water. When the tide comes in and things like that, the water's too treacherous to get across. So he takes this side of beef and he discovers something that's awful. He discovers a scene of murder. And there's a few victims. So he rouses the alarm and the police come to investigate. And we start getting an inquest as well in this storyline. But then we go back into the past. And in fact, the past storyline for me was so much more gripping and engaging. This whole past storyline revolves around a character called Eve. And Eve is in her teenage years, and she's one of the children that's been taken in by this guy called John. And John inherited this castle on this isle. And he starts his life by grabbing children and looking after them. It's like he's trying to care for them, taking children from workhouses and taking children who have no other option in life. They're destitute, basically. So he's giving them, hope, basically. He's looking after them, caring for them. But is he really? Because on this isle, it seems like he's forming a sort of cult. And the way he treats them, the things he does to these children, is not nice at all. It's so dark. It feels cultish. It feels like he's abusing them in so many ways. There's so many things going on in this story that we see, but also that we imagine things we don't see as well in the story, but we imagine them so clearly that you get the sense that this guy is just evil. He's like the personification of evil. So Eve, being one of a group of children, and most of the children are female. And through this story, we're told that the only boy, Abel, he was an accident. When he was first taken, they thought he was a girl. Then by then, it was too late to take him back. So he's staying on the isle as one of the children. So that raises questions anyway. But on this isle, John makes them do all different things. He makes them do challenges to prove loyalty. He half-starves them all the time. They're hungry all the time. And that half-starved state and other things that go on also make them almost subservient to him. They seem to adore John. They seem to do anything for him. And that's quite dangerous and quite cultish. That just gives a very dark feel to this whole story. The children are also told that the rest of the world is wicked, that the isle they live on is a safe harbour for the truly righteous people. The rest of the world is wicked, and there'll be a judgment day, and they'll be the ones who are saved, and the rest of the world will suffer. But their beliefs, they're told, are almost pagan, almost witchcraft beliefs. And they do things, they perform certain rituals, almost certain spells, different parts of the day, different times of the year. It's very pagan-like, very mystical. And it's all designed to keep them in line, to keep them subservient. And that's another dark angle to this story. So there's no question in this story that they're living in a cult, that this guy John is a leader of a cult. There's no question about that at all. In the present day storyline, which is present day for this book anyway, we're told that Eve is the murderer. And in the past storyline, it's all the events leading up to that big event where Eve is the murderer. But we're told that through the eyes of a character called Dinah. And Dinah is the survivor of this scene that's found on the island. And she's interviewed first at an inquest, then she vanishes. We get chapters through Dinah's eyes, and it's Dinah writing letters apparently, and she wants to send those letters to somebody. Because in those letters she's giving her personal thoughts about what happened, but also about how scared she is that Eve is still out there, that Eve could come back and come and haunt her or finish the job or something. She's always worried about somebody coming and finding out something about her or finding where she is. And those moments, they're not as engaging and gripping as the past storyline, but you still get a sense of Gothic atmosphere in them because they still feel quite dark, because Dinah's thoughts aren't happy thoughts at all. They're quite dark, they're quite dangerous, and she's trying to protect a child called Mary as well. But she doesn't know if she can. And sometimes you feel like sometimes that she could be a danger to Mary. You get that sense in the way she's presenting herself through these letters she's writing. That's also gripping in this book because you don't know what's going to happen in that present day storyline. There's a catalyst in the past storyline that brings things to a head, but I can't describe too much about that. I will say that part of this catalyst is a crime that happens in the town, not on the Isle, in the castle, but in the town that's not too far from the castle. And because of that crime, there's an inspector that comes and investigates. And that inspector is the catalyst for things to change. Things to change for Eve, but also things to change everywhere. Everything Eve touches from that moment changes. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But there's changes going on, and they're quite big changes, and there's shocks, and there's twists going on in the story as well. That catalyst is so important in the story, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore. And I won't discuss the plot anymore as well, because there are so many things in this story you should experience for the first time as a reader. And Catriona Ward is an author that writes very dark stories. She doesn't pull any punches. She doesn't mind that, I don't think. She likes to challenge readers. She likes crafting these stories that are cleverly told, and there's always a mystery behind the horror as well. So even though these are horror, this one feels Gothic horror to me. We've got this horror element, but there's a mystery that runs right through this story. And we don't find out the truth about that mystery until the very end. But in this book, like all Catriona Ward books that I've read, there's also a sense of hope in the story. Doesn't mean the hope's there to balance out the darkness or be bigger than the darkness. It can be a small bit of hope, but it's there. There's some sense of light, some sense of joy in the story that's there. In this book, it's very small, I admit, but it's still there. You get a sense of hope for some characters in this story, that things can be okay. But it's not going to outweigh the dark elements in this story. This book is very dark, it is violent, it is challenging, it is shocking, and you get to expect that, I think, from this author. Eve is mesmerizing as a character. She's so gripping and so engaging. She feels so real as well. You actually get the sense this character is growing up in an environment that's isolated, an environment where she's been told what to think and do all the time. You get the sense that she's growing up in a situation that's not healthy for a child. You get all that through this character. And through her view, through her point of view, it's so consistent. It feels so real. And we get to see her growth as well. There's great character growth for this character in the story. And Eve challenges assumptions for herself. She challenges her worldview in this story as well. There's so much going on for the character, but I enjoy this character so much. Christopher Black is the investigator that is the catalyst for change in this book. He's well used in that respect, and he's a great character as well. He's described so well, he's created very well, he's got a really good history as well for a support character, and he's got his own character growth in the story as well. I really enjoy this character. He feels ahead of his time in the story. It feels like a character that should have been a character in a more modern mystery, because he's there for the mystery element, not so much the horror element. But I enjoy him. I think without him being created and described so well, without him being used as he is in the story so well for that moment where he's a catalyst, this book would have suffered. John is the man who owns the castle, inherited the castle, and runs this cult. He's the head of a cult. He's so well created and so well crafted. Even though he's evil, even though he's created for us to dislike him, to test him even, is created so well and is used so well in the story. I really enjoy this character for that. I don't enjoy him for who he is, because he's an awful character, but because he's created as such a good villain. And you don't always get the sense that he is a villain though, because sometimes you get a sense that he really cares for the children on the island. But underneath it all, there's a darkness about him. And a lot of the time, he does feel evil. He feels like pure evil. And there are so many other questions about John that we're not told about in blatant terms, but we do wonder about in the story. I like this character. I like the fact that Catriona Ward didn't hold back in the way this character is created, because without this character being so dark and just so evil most of the time, this book wouldn't be as good, wouldn't be as engaging as it is. I loved this book, everything about it. The characters, the atmosphere, the setting, everything about it just feels so real. I rate it a 5 out of 5. Catriona Ward knows how to create a story that's dark and compelling. She knows how to create a story that's controlled, where the setting is described very well. In this story, you feel immersed in the time period. You feel like you're really there. And you feel like you're on that isle with those children. All the things they go through, you feel like you're there. That's how powerful this story is. And this story has no filler. Whatever's in the story is there for a reason. And I so appreciate that in the stories she writes. On my channel, I review many horrors. If you enjoy horror, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.